This is the Short Action Customs Infinity die. Let's take a closer look. So here it is. This is the Short Action Customs Infinity die. A number of you have made comments that I needed to take a look at this, both on my Patreon and on YouTube. So guess what? Here it is. And I have to say, I wasn't disappointed. But the only thing is I think it's a little bit of a misnomer to say that it is an Arbor die, or an Arbor press die, or an inline die, whatever you want to call it. I think really what it is, it's an Arbor die system, and really it makes it different than anything else out there. There are plenty of Arbor dies out there. They all do a fine job. Some do a better job. Some are easier to use. Some meet a price point. But none of them allow you to load everything from about 223 up to 338 Lapua or 300 Norma out of one system. Okay, so here's what you get. If you order the Infinity die, you're going to get the carry case like this. You're going to get the Infinity die. You're going to get the large and small centering columns, which this will do 223s and any 223 base cartridges and some of the smaller ones. And then this is the larger centering sleeve, and it's going to do everything else. You also get 3 of these pusher units, and they're all just a little bit different length here. And that's going to help dictate pushing on one of these 6 seating stems. Okay. And all of that goes onto one of these bases. Now the bases are the only thing where when you order the kit, you're going to get to choose your first base, and then you can order additional bases for other cartridges if you need to. I will say, all things considered, as you look at adding on more and more cartridges, it becomes a better and better value. So, like, who really is looking at something that's over $400 for an Arbor die? Well, a lot of people actually. Think about the people that are doing multiple competition cartridges and they want to be able to travel and bring one die, or they would love the opportunity to bring one die and be able to load maybe their dasher for one thing and their 300 WISM for another match, and maybe mid-range, long-range, heavy gun, light gun, whatever the case is. You might be a hunter and you're going out with a group of people, and you've got multiple cartridges that are going out on the hunt, and you might need to make adjustments on them. There are a lot of different applications where this kind of system really comes into play. Not to mention obviously a cost savings over time as you look at adding on different cartridges. And for me personally, I can tell you I've gone through at least 7 or 8 Arbor dies over the years. I've bought some, I've made some, I've then sold some, then bought new ones to replace those. I wouldn't have to do any of that with a system like this other than a couple of bases. And that's really what makes it, I think, something unique. Now, the pushers, I'm going to explain how all of this works when I'm actually loading on this thing. But the pushers are pretty self-explanatory. You're going to pick the right length to push on the seating stem, and we're just going to put those away. The actual stems, the seating stems here, there's 2 of them that are marked small, so they're small 1 and 2. And then what you have is 4 M's, which is model for them. And you'll find a complete list on their website of what they recommend at least starting with for the different seating stems. But here's what I'll tell you, and they'll tell you too, is that there's no right seating stem for a particular bullet. They're not going to tell you, well, you have to use an M2 for a 184 hybrid, or a 140 ELD, or whatever it is. Sure, there's recommended cartridge or caliber stems, but just playing around with some different bullets, you really do get a feel for what stem is going to really kind of cradle the bullet and give you the best feel along that ogive as you're seating it. And I think that's really, that's one of the cool things about this. With most systems, you are either tied to a particular bullet or maybe a particular style of bullet, and then you got to buy other stems and hope that they work and stuff like that. This way, you've already got it all. You can play with it and go from there. So these are all of your stems that are there. And then we talked about the base. I happen to shoot my 7 PRCW, which uses a Type 6. So that's what this is. I do have some other ones for other cartridges, but the base itself is absolutely a necessity for using the die. You're going to be putting the die on it, and I know a lot of people have experience with other Arbor dies where it comes with a little cup and they may or may not use it In fact, I know most people, a lot of people I hang around, it's probably 50-50 in terms of whether they use the cup or not. I think some people see value, some people don't, some people don't, care either way. But I do like the way that they've designed the inside, and it's really hard to see this, but it's actually like a double recess in there. So your cartridge is really sitting on the meat of the rim, and you're not going to get any interference from any of the primer or anything like that. If it happened to be sitting proud or anything else gets in there, you're really getting a true feel on the outside there. You are going to be using this, and I thought that was going to be super annoying because I'll be honest, the cup, like I use the cup, sometimes I don't use the cup on my other dies that I've had, and at the end of the day, I was like, well, do I really need another piece? I will tell you, I've really come to appreciate these, least of which, and I'll show you, but you can actually, like I actually load on it. So, if I'm doing some loading, I can actually throw my funnel right on here and it's going to sit, and it takes a fair amount of bumping without falling over here, which makes it nice because you can just seat with that, pull this off, throw your cap on top, and then send it into your arbor press, however you're doing it. So I've really enjoyed having that base, and I have found that it works really well in terms of releasing, in terms of giving you something where you're not going to knock it over, especially because I tend to shake and I can be a little jerky in my movements sometimes depending on the day, and I haven't knocked over or spilled anything while using this. So I do, it's sort of an ancillary effect, but I do like it from that aspect. Now, as far as the die goes, if you talk to Short Action Customs, and I won't lie, I'm not going to go through the motion of trying it, but they will tell you without a doubt, don't try to pull this die apart. Now, there is a process for changing out the centering sleeve, but it does not involve pulling the die apart. There are 3 very strong detents in here, kind of at opposing angles here. And if you manage to kind of finagle this thing apart, you are going to regret it. They have told me that to no end that tiny little ball bearings and springs are going to go flying everywhere, that you will never find them, and then you're going to have to call and get a set of bearings or ball bearings and springs from them. And it just doesn't sound like fun. And to be honest, like even for the sake of a video, I'm not going to do that because I don't have enough confidence that I'm going to get them back in. But what I will do is I'm going to show you how to change the centering sleeve, because it's not something you're probably going to be doing all the time, but it is one of those processes where if you get this, you're going to want to do it, and knowing how to do it is important. So here's what you got. So you've got this piece here, which turns. And one of the things that's really interesting about the way that this die works is that there is no part of the die itself that is moving. Like there's no micrometer top that's going up or down like you've seen on other systems. What there is instead is a center column that rotates up and down, or goes up and down as it rotates, that affects the seating stem. So what we want to do is we want to pull that out, and the best way I can tell you is that if you're looking at the top, is unscrewing, so counterclockwise is going to unscrew or push out this stem, and when we reinsert it, we want to screw it down so that it goes down. Okay, but we're going to do this until this gets loose enough that we can turn it. And this piece, because we're going counterclockwise to move it up, that means that this needs to turn clockwise to come out. So we're going to just, once it becomes loose enough that I can turn it by hand, we're going to pull this out. Okay, so there is that piece. And then we have the centering sleeve. Now, I'm going to put mine back in, but this could be either one. And again, because we are going to be going in the opposite direction, okay, we are going to get this thing started. And we are going to go counterclockwise on it. And, take your time. Don't cross-thread it or rush into it. And you're going to turn this until it stops. And it's just going to stop kind of arbitrarily. And then what we want to do is we want to go clockwise with this from the top. And there are 3 detents down in here. And we need them to catch on these. Let me show you real quick. I forgot to show you what's going on the sides here. So there's 3 kind of rails or grooves, if you will, right here. And I know they're probably hard to see on camera, but there's a groove there, groove there, groove there. And we need the balls to catch on that. So we're going to tighten. We're just going to do this till it gets hand tight. And then we are going to slowly turn clockwise. And what's happening right now is this and this are turning together. And what we need it to do is we need one of the balls, we need the balls to catch. And so it just caught. And what you'll notice is when you turn, now if you're staring at the little gap that's in here, it's not moving. So this is moving, this is not, which means now it's going to suck down. Okay. So now I can go a little faster and get it down. Okay, so that's all there is to it. And the other great thing is you do have a zeroing collar on here. So it's not detented in itself, but it is very snug. So you can put that on a 0 mark if you want to, if you're out at the range. Maybe you're doing some kind of seating depth test or something like that. No matter where you ended up, you can now bring it to 0 and then go, 3 thousandths, 5 thousandths, whatever it is you want to do in order to do your seating depth test. So that's the basic system. I think obviously it's a little better if you see it in action. So let's head on over to my reloading bench and I'm going to show you how to set this up, how to determine how you set up your pushers, how to use the unit, and we will go from there. Let's take a quick second just to talk about concentricity with the infinity die. Now, to be honest, in the general sense, I really don't sweat concentricity all that much. I have a fairly decent tolerance for run out, only because I've done a bunch of testing and, I'm accepting of more than a couple thousandths compared to what I used to back in the day. But I realize there's a lot of people that look at this and say, well, it's a universal centering die. How good can it be? Well, let's take a look. Here's a piece of brass. Let's go ahead and throw this on. And, okay, there's the first one. Uh-oh, well. And then we've got this one here. All right, so let's try to put this under. And let's get this all situated. And here we go. So that's on about 6 or 5.5. Let's turn this dial here. Okay. So that is, that is running right about 0.5 thousandths, maybe just a hair over 0.5 thousandths. Let's see here, this one, that one's the same thing, so just about half, just under, and I don't know if I can make this so you can see a little better here, but let's, just so you can see on the gauge a little bit, you can see it moving, it's barely moving there. So, that tells me that, yes, this universal centering sleeve is more than capable. Obviously, you have to do your end of the bargain, which is getting good prepped brass. That's where consistent neck wall thickness is, proper chamfering, if you're using any kind of lube, whatever you're doing to get consistent brass prep, you have to do your part, but it goes to show you that this can also do that. So let's start putting it into practical use. So I've shown you this. Now, I've already taken out the base, which is type 6, and that's the one I need for my 6.5 PRC. Obviously, there's other choices depending on the cartridges that you are loading. And there are seating stems. I've already taken out the Model 2. Again, that was based on Short Action Customs recommendations. And then I have the standard centering sleeve. This is the small one. I don't need it. And I have pulled out all 3 pushers because I'll show you how to figure out which pusher you need. All right, so we have 3 pushers. Okay, we have the base that I need, and then we have the seating stem that I'm going to use. Again, keep in mind, there may be more than one stem that works for your bullets, so feel free to play around with it. You might actually find that for some of the bullet shapes, a different seating stem than the recommended one might work, because they basically say, like, 6.5 and 7 millimeter. Well, you know, there's a theory that certain 30 cal stems might work really well on a 7 mil bullet, or you know, a 6.5 stem on a 6 mil bullet or something like that. So, but I'm using the Model 2. That one has worked well for me using this die here. And with the die itself, when I'm starting up trying to figure out what I need, what I want to do is make sure that I've got this centering sleeve, or not the centering sleeve itself, but the insert here. I want it to be flush with the top. So we're going to go ahead and unscrew it a bunch, and we're going to get it pretty much flush. I mean, as flush as we can. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this zeroing sleeve here at the bottom, and I'm just going to turn it to 0. Okay. And now we need to figure out, we know which base, we know which seating stem. We need to figure out which pusher we want to use. A Short Action Customs will tell you, find a dummy round and base it on that. And if you have a dummy round, great. You're going to put that in, you're going to put the die over it, put in your seating die, and then you're going to start putting in the pushers. Now this one goes down and makes contact all the way, so we're going to put that aside. This one here goes down, makes contact all the way to the top, so that one's going to go. And then this one here, there's a little bit of a gap. That's what we don't want. So that's our stop point. And we're going to go backwards to the medium one now. And that is where we want to start. So that would be the easiest way to find it. Obviously, if you have just a piece of brass and a bullet and you just want to get started so that you can at least start finding some measurements, then you can do essentially the same thing with just a piece of brass and a bullet, except now we're going to go to flush. We go to the next size up. There's a little bit of a gap, about just under 1/8 of an inch here. So that's good. And then if I go to the big one, you'll see there's a ton of room. That's not going to be any good. So what I want to do is start with the medium one. So either way, you can find which pusher you need. So that's, you know, that works fine. And what I want to do now is I want to just find my loaded round length. So one nice thing about this base, you can actually pour powder in it. They're very, very sturdy. Okay. So we're going to do that. We are going to put a bullet on. We are going to put these pushers aside. And now I am going to put this on, and I'm going to put it on my amp press. Now, a word of, I won't say warning or caution, but if you are using the amp press with this die, I have found that turning up the standard pressure that it applies is 80 kilograms. I'm currently using around 120 because I've found that it just gives a much more positive seating pressure for my use. And even on some other Arbor dies, I have turned it up a little bit. So if you are finding inconsistencies, just a little tidbit on the amp press, play with that seating force, because it may be bouncing off, believe it or not. If it can't apply enough force to seat your bullet, it could be literally pushing as hard as it thinks it needs to, when in reality you want to push more. So you can see here, if I kind of do this and push down on the, see how it's lifting up. So now I can put this on. And I'm going to measure this. Now I want to be at 2.319. I am currently at 2.381. And rather than look completely stupid, I'm going to 2.381 minus 2.319. I need to come down 62 thousandths. So now I can take my die, and again, it's on 0. One full rotation is 40. And then I need to go another 22. Okay, and that should get me pretty close. Now, it's not always a great idea to keep seating onto the same bullet that you already did, but it's going to at least get me really close to then try another one here. And so it got me really close, 2.322. I always attribute 1 or 2 thousandths variance to the fact that I'm pushing a round that's already been loaded. There's always going to be some variance in there in my experience. So what I want to do is now load up another one. We're going to throw a die on there. See what we get. All right. So that one, that was about the same. So what we want to do is I'm going to come down. Let's see. All right, so we're going to go, that was about 4. We're going to load one more. And again, at this point, I'm loading all fresh ones because I'm really trying to fine tune it. And these are all going to be blow off rounds for me anyway. It's not a big deal. .319. And if I push really hard, it goes to 185. So there we go, 2.319. So now we are set. We are good to go on that. So let me do something kind of fun here. We are going to, let me just pick this last row. So I'm just going to load up 5 real quick here. And one more to go here. Okay. So there we go. There's 5. Okay, 318. 175. So 3175. 3175. 18. And 18. So all 5 of these are within half a thousandths of each other, and in reality, if you're using calipers like this, really that half thousandths doesn't really mean anything anyway. So for me, these are all definitely within spec for each other. I'll take that half thousandths as being good. And in this case, these are ready for tomorrow. Now, what I can do is come out a thousandths because I really wanted to be at 9. I might actually go 2 thousandths on it. And these are still going to be blow-offs for me, but they're close enough that now these can be ciders. So I'm going to make sure I put them in a cider row instead of a blow-off. The blow-offs are just going to be for like after cleaning, they're fouling rounds. I'll go back through and measure some of these, and I can push some of the longer ones back down a little bit. So they might be able to be ciders, but I'm shooting several strings tomorrow, so these will disappear pretty quickly, and then these will be good enough for ciders, and then I'll have my other ones for final ciders, and then we'll be good to go. So you can see that it's pretty simple to use. You know, you can use it for multiple cartridges, like we said, which is really the selling point. And in those cases, what you want to do is you want to come up with a system where you are looking at how many rotations below flush you're at, taking a note, like if you do a bunch of cartridges, keeping a log of what stem, what pusher, what base, and then you know, how many revolutions, how many thousandths, whatever you want to count below flush are you at. And that's going to get you right back in there within, you know, a couple thousandths every time. And that's really the beauty of this system. So if you're looking to make a change and you've got a ton of cartridges, or maybe you're getting started and you think, you know, I'm probably going to end up doing a lot of different cartridges, I would definitely check out the Infinity die. I think it's pretty hard to beat for the guy who does, or gal, who does a ton of reloading with a lot of different cartridges and really just wants to have one system instead of a bunch of different dies lying around. So hope this helps. Hopes it gives you another option to look at. There's a lot of great products out there. This one fits a really nice niche out there for a lot of reloaders, and I think it's going to be popular. So anyway, I hope you all have a good one. We'll talk later.